So, can you give a wonderful warm welcome to Beckie Senior, please?
So these days, loads of people are obsessed with soaps, which I really don't care for. And people also dress up things like Downton Abbey as like intellectual, historical dramas. It's just a soap. And I mean, I swear the same person's died at least 3 times in Hollyoaks and all sorts of things. And people are obsessed with vacuous celebrity, so things like the Kardashians, the royals, Beyonce. It's just absolute bollocks, and I really don't care for it myself. But what you need, as we were saying, is to go back to history if you want actual proper legends. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about the Mitfords, because if you don't know anything about them, yes, you're going to find an education in this. So they're a very influential family. They're minor aristocracy, and in the first half of the 20th century, they played a huge part in shaping British politics. So they were slightly related to the Churchills, and Muv and Favre, as they called their mother and father. Muv was a fascist, and their father was a conservative, which I think you can think is a great environment to be bringing up children. There were 6 girls and 1 boy. The girls were some of the most desirable debutantes of their age. Everybody wanted to marry them. They had these striking, beautiful blue eyes that just pierced through you. And, they were some of the most photographed women of their era. So, as you can see, they were just very, very popular. They set a lot of trends with the clothes that they wore. They were all over the newspapers, and people really, really saw them as legends in their own time. But I'm going to run you through them because they are all quite diverse, even though they look the same. So Nancy is probably the most famous Mitford. She was an author, fascist. This is a beautiful picture of her by Cecil Beaton, who's one of the most prolific photographers of the 20th century. You then have Pamela, who is the next Mitford. She was known as the rural Mitford and tried to stay out of it all because she was apolitical, also anti-Semitic, but we'll just slide over that. And she just stayed on her farm and kept herself to herself, really, because the rest were cranking on through. Thomas was the only boy. He was a fascist, and in the outbreak of the Second World War refused to fight the Nazis and instead toddled off to Burma, where he thought I'd fight the Japanese instead and got killed. So that was how he met his end. Diana was the most beautiful of all the Mitfords, and in the society wedding of 1929, married into the Guinness dynasty, so did quite well for herself. Could have spent the rest of her life going around on yachts, but instead, because she was married Sir Oswald Mosley, who was the head of the British Union of Fascists. So knocked around Europe with Mussolini and ended up spending 3 years of the Second World War incarcerated because she colluded with the enemy, as one does. You then have Unity, potentially mothered Hitler's child. So, as you can tell, she was a fascist, and her middle name was Valkyrie. Don't get that in Hollyoaks. She was also conceived in the town of Swastika in Canada, where her father had a gold prospect. I am not making this up. So Unity shot herself in the head on the start of World War II, didn't manage to kill herself, died many years later of her injuries. Not good. Jessica, communist, obviously. You have to change it up a little bit. So Jessica was a prolific writer as well. She kept a lot of the letters that the sisters wrote between themselves. She moved to the United States of America, which in the 40s and 50s is not a good place to be a communist. Plenty of other places she could have done it. She actually shared a room with Unity when they were children. They drew a line down the middle of the room, one side pictures of Hitler, one side pictures of Stalin. Nobody thought this was weird. It's bizarre. Last one, but not least, is Deborah, or Debo. She became the Duchess of Devonshire. She moved into Chatsworth, where she successfully ran the stately home and revolutionised the stately home industry in the UK, and did quite well for herself, really. I think she kept it under wraps. So I've got a little rhyme so that when you want to remember who the Mitfords are. So we have author, farmer, early death for the brother, fascist, Nazi, communist, and now we have no Mitfords left because of the death of the Duchess. So the Dowager Duchess, the Duchess of Devonshire, died in about 2014, so there aren't any Mitfords left, unfortunately, but her son Peregrine, again, not making this up, is happily running Chatsworth and keeping the dynasty going. So all I would say is if you meet a Mitford descendant, don't mention the war. It's a little bit of a sore subject, and it's really not a good idea. So there's plenty, skirt the issue. But what I would say is these days, unfortunately, it seems to be popular being right-wing. I wouldn't encourage it. but in certain parts of the world. But I bloody well know who'd win in a fight, is all I would say. So pick your legends carefully, people. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can see others on the Bettakultcha YouTube channel. Subscribe now and you'll be notified when new ones are uploaded.